There's a first for everything, and this first is all about just having your heart completely filled up. And my heart was completely filled up today because I got a chance to be able to spend time in my men's group in Carlsbad here. This is the little plug for it. 7:30 to 8:30 every single Tuesday. We have men's group, and it is amazing. We go through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. We're on Proverbs 21, and it was incredible. We start off with speaking life, and I want to help you to understand what speaking life is today. I want you to, what we're going to cover too in part 2 of pleasing God, and I've never done this type of episode before where I just follow up, but I followed up because there's so much in my heart, and I got poured into today. So we're going to talk about speaking life. We're going to be talking about creating a sustainable, ongoing brand. We're going to talk about comparison. We're going to talk about pleasing God and how we can do that, which it sounds such like a daunting task, but why don't you say we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Part 2, baby. Part 2. How do we please God? Well, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day is a way that we can gain wisdom, right? And it was incredible. I want to tell you about a quote that my brother sent to me, my big brother, Rob, my hero. We're on a text train with myself and my best buddy, Will. You guys have heard him on the podcast. If you haven't, check him out on You Have to Meet My Friends. I randomly call my friends on those episodes, and then we just have a conversation. We also do interviews, with some of the most iconic people, but right now it's all about Inchstones, the little tiny things, being able to create little moments in your life. And we're talking about those Inchstones, and we take you through with the Proverbs. So here's the quote that comes from my big brother, Rob. The more we focus on what our competition is doing, the less we're focused on what we are doing. And that's from Simon Sinek. Big shout out to him. And my brother sent it out to me, and this goes right into it. So I want to tell you, like, how can we please God? The first thing that we could do is speak life to people. Speak life to people. How do we speak life? Well, you use their name, and then you tell them something very specific about something that they did that inspired you. It's that simple, but it has to be so specific. It can't be overarching, saying like, oh, I love you because you're always nice. It doesn't mean anything at all. When it gets specific, it has power. And we were just in our men's group, and one of my buddies, Eric, he was talking about a couple of things that he wanted to pray for. And what we did is we were saying that, he put out a prayer request, and he said, I want to pray for this person. And I said, well, let's flip it around. Let's start praying for you to have you filled up so you're so full that you overflow onto this person that you want to pray for. And what I said to him is, think about this. As opposed to putting out the fires in your life, why not wet the soil? And imagine if we went back to, I believe it's Proverbs 20. Let's see. It is Proverbs 20, verse 30. That was from yesterday. And we go back to it, and it's trials will make sense when I have a sober mind. How do I get a sober mind? By staying in contact with the Lord, right? And having a right relationship with him. But trials will make sense during that time. So think about this. Imagine if you knew that the trials were coming. No matter who you are out there, there's some sort of trial that's going to happen. They always say I've heard this before, that you're either coming out of a trial, going into a trial, or you're in a trial. So you're either in it, you're having challenges right now, you're coming out of that challenge, or you're about to go into one. And if we know that in our lives, it's not the morbid side of it, but it's to understand that that is going to happen. And when we understand that that's going to happen, what we could do is, as opposed to wait for the trial to happen or wait for the fire to happen in our life and go put it out and be good at putting out fires, why not just wet the soil? And how can we wet the soil? We could wet the soil by speaking life. And we could speak life into people by using their name and telling them something awesome that they do that inspires you. But it's got to be very specific. And I tell you, when you start to do this, you start to focus on those things, and then more of those things continue to happen. The question that I had this morning was, how can I please God? And then, as I look at it from a spiritual sense, here was the thing. What God said in Proverbs 21, check your heart, do the right thing, be content and avoid pride, be diligent, walk upright, make great friends, and also be one. Pay attention to the wise. Be generous. Take thought of the future. Love him first. Righteousness and love equals life, prosperity, and honor. Seek wisdom at all costs. Speak life. Put in the work. And listen carefully. And then at the end, what he said, but realize that none of these things will work unless you just have a relationship with me. And so he was the power, right? And so as I looked at this, I was like, oh, wow, from a spiritual sense, this is amazing. But I got a chance to talk to Coach Gary today, and we were talking, and he was talking about his product. And as he goes, one of the best in the world. Like this dude delivers championships. Coach Gary delivers championships. And when people say, well, what type of championship? Well, let me ask you this. What type you want to have? You want to have it in your business. You want to have it in your personal life. You want to have it in your financial life. You want to have it in your spiritual life. Coach Gary delivers championships. And so he breaks down all these things, works with you on all these things. And it was amazing because as we were talking about it, he was telling me about the traumas that he works with, the challenges that he solves, all these things. And I was like, no, Coach Gary, you deliver championships, because I saw him deliver it to my son. He was my son's coach, but he also is one of the greatest in the world in delivering championships in the personal, professional, spiritual, and financial realms. And so as we talked about that, what I said is, Coach, when you're joyful, meaning that you're filled up, falling in love with your current circumstances, allowing magic to happen, Coach, everybody wants to be around you. But when you're simply giving information, nobody wants a part of it. And I said, it's about the way that you make people feel. It's your vibe, right? Because the vibe is not the energy that you bring into the room. It's the way in which people feel when you leave. And how can you do that? First of all, you got to fall in love with it. You've got to be joyful about that product. And as I started to speak life into him, what started to happen is he started to get excited. And I told him, I said, look in your pocket right now. What do you got? He said, an iPhone. I said, why do you use an iPhone? I said, is it because it's better than Android because all the features and benefits? He's like, nah. I said, it's because you feel the way you feel about Apple, right? He's like, yeah. And he said, it's easy for me to work with. Well, it's easy for him to work with because the way he feels about it. Now, this is absolutely no excuse for anyone on earth to have Android ever. But I do want to tell you that your product will fall away, the price will fall away, your offering will fall away when people feel good about what it is that you're doing. And what God wants us to understand is through Proverbs 21, how can we please him? It's by spending time with him. And for him to be pleased, he feels good. How does he feel good? When he simply has his children spend time with them. That's it. What do your kids want? They want all the greatest things in the world. My son says he wants a Lamborghini. He wants to go to this place, that place. But honestly, at the end of the day, he just wants my time in the Lamborghini, his mom's time in the Lamborghini, or on vacation. And so as we go through all these things, God is saying you could do all these things, but this is what the world will tell you about how to connect with me is through a religion or a ritual. And then what happens is then we get weight. Think of this. Think of if this is what the world will tell us is you got to check your heart. You got to do the right thing. You got to be content and avoid pride. You got to be diligent. You got to walk right. You got to make great friends. Be one. Pay attention. Be generous. Take thought of the future. Love him first. You got to be righteous and have love. And you got to seek wisdom at all costs. Speak life. Put the work in. Listen carefully. And that is a lot of weight. And a lot of us are carrying a lot of weight right now. There's so many of you out there that are thinking, I got to do all these things to be good. And what God is saying, you ain't got to do all those things. I just want your attention. Spend time with me. I'll provide all those things. I'll cause all those things to happen. And when they happen, then you'll have to tell my story as opposed to yours. And as we sat in men's group today, it was amazing to be able to see the basis of this was just speaking life. Coach Gary said to me, I started speaking life to our football team. At the end of the practice, all the kids would sit around and they would say something that had to be specific about somebody else that they did that inspired them. And he said the kids would walk away, lift it up. Even when they didn't win the game, he would do the same thing. And what I was telling him is we didn't only build kids' teams like this. My wife and I built a multi-million-dollar business that spanned the country by that simple process of speaking life. And we did it every single week with every single employee. And we had 85 employees in the company, and they all did it. And within 15 seconds, say somebody's name and something that inspired them. And I tell you, this little thing of speaking life. And where I want to tell you the story about Eric in my men's group today, when we said he was wanted to pray for this specific person. And I said, when does the time happen when what you're praying about is actually going to take place? He said about 60 days. I said, then you got 60 days to wet the soil. You got 60 days to wet the soil. How do we wet the soil? So when the fire comes, it can't catch. How do we wet the soil? We wet the soil by speaking life. And you have 60 days to pour into this person, specifically every single day. You should write them a letter of the great things that they do. They should hear you say it, and they should see you impersonate it. So they should see it, they should read it, and they should hear it. And when that stuff starts to happen, what happens is our soil starts to get wet, so the fire that is inevitably going to come can't catch. And imagine if we started doing this in our life. If we started speaking life into the people that were around us, if we had life spoken into us. A couple of years ago, my pops graduated to heaven. 2.5 years before that, my mama graduated to heaven. But I believe that they knew that they were leaving early. So when they left early, they had to make sure that that soil was wet, and they had to make sure that they spoke as much life into me as possible. But they also showed me where the source of life was, and that was in the Word. And that was in a relationship. See, God doesn't want any of your things. He doesn't want any of your rituals. He doesn't want any of your religions. What he wants is for you just to spend time with him, and then he'll tell you what to do at that time. And I can tell you it's going to be in line with his Word. I can tell you this. It's amazing because it'll be filled up with love. It'll be filled up with righteousness. It'll be filled up with grace. It'll be filled up with peace. It'll be filled up with joy. And in all those things, it'll always come back to that. His yoke is light, and he asks us to take it on. And whenever we feel like we're stressed, right? And we talked about it earlier, where you're either in a challenge, you're about to go into a challenge, or you're coming out of a challenge. I want you to take a second, take a breath, and ask yourself, where are you right now? You coming out of a challenge? You going into one? Or are you in one right now? And if we take that breath and realize that there are going to be challenges, but all he wants us to do is spend time with him. And when he says his yoke is light, it's because when we are in the challenge, the weight of the world is on top of us. When we're coming out of the challenge, we're trying to shed that weight because we're moving through. As we're going into a challenge, we're starting to tighten up. And what God is saying is, I want you to stay loose. You see, my pops told me this, is that he was a boxer. I'm not a boxer, but he was. And he always told me, he said, all you have to do, son, is get your opponent angry. Because if you could get them angry, they'll focus on their anger and not on you. And all you have to do is stay focused. And when you're focused on what you need to do, you could take them out with 1 to 2 strikes because they're precision. Because the other person is so focused on the anger, they're so focused on the pain, they're so focused on anything else. And what the enemy wants to do in your life is get you focused on that challenge that you're about to go into, you're coming out of, or that you're in right now. And what God is saying, no, just focus on me. Focus on me right here, right now. I'll give you peace. I'll give you joy. I'll give you grace. I'll give you every single thing, and you'll be content in this moment. This little inch stone is all I need. All I need is your attention. And it's amazing because it'll apply in business. It'll apply in our relationships. It'll apply every aspect of our lives. And it comes down to that simple, simple thing. And I want to read this to you because in Proverbs 21, verse 30, it hit me so hard. There is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Proverbs 21, the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. Speak life into people. Don't worry about comparing yourself to anybody else because it gets you off the focus of where you need to be. Where do you need to be? Spending time just with him. And he'll give you every little inch stone. And that inch stone will help you to experience the moment that literally will bring magic into your life. I had magic with Coach Gary today. I had magic with Mr. Eric today. I had magic with Dave today. Thank you so much for being in men's group. And I had magic with my brother because I was just on the phone with him and he spoke life into me. Your moment is waiting, but you got to be present for it. Corresponding proverb, corresponding day, 3,000-year-old wisdom. But I can tell you this. If you read it out of ritual or you read it out of religion, it won't work. But if you put on a relationship with him and give him your attention during the time, he will translate every single word to you. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and so.